of my novel, A Peculiar Kind of Love. Remember, you guys, this video is for entertainment purposes only. First of all, y'all know what it is. Big ups to the Most High, yeah, and you guys that are still involved. Like always, I appreciate your time, love, and support. Much love coming from this way. Now, with that being said and established, are you guys ready to turn some pages? Get those imaginations soaring? Well, so am I. Clarence, set the stage. Okay, quick recap, loves. In our last reading, we had a few things going on. Yes, one of those things being Dean and Jay. Yes, they call themselves having a little thing going on, and we're not mad at that. Well, Drew was at first until seeing the smile on Jay's face, and then she was okay with it all. I know some of y'all may have entertained the thought of Drew and Jay, but that's not the case here. On the other hand, Dean seemed to have some things going on herself. First thing being, Missy seems to have enjoyed her time with Drew more than her time with Jay. And then there's the question about this young man sitting in her office in the dark asking questions about a picture Dean clearly tried to hide. Yes, hunties, y'all better be paying attention because our girl Dean, she's coming with questions now, just like Amy. It just seems like our boy Jay can't catch a break when it comes to women. But it's all good, and we're just gonna stay the course for now. In the meantime, between time, let's drop in on Drew and make sure she's staying the course as well. She wasn't. Actually, Drew was running 20 minutes behind for her lunch date with Coral. He looked at his watch 11 times, holding on to patience. Hunty, Drew has a lot to learn about her father. He's a military man, They believe in promptness. Believe me, I know. Anyway, Bex stood before Coral with notepad in hand. Y'all remember Bex, right? She was the manager over Tammy's, this little sandwich shop they're at right now. Yeah. Anyway, Bex spoke. Mr. McCain, would you like to go ahead and order? If I know Drew, she's caught up at work. Carl looked at his watch once more. Yeah, I'll go ahead and order. My girl is cutting it close today. Just as Carl went to order, Drew anxiously rushed in. The 6 months she'd gotten to know Carl, she found him to be a very punctual man. He'd addressed her a few times about her tardiness. Saving Carl the speech, Drew started explaining before she even took a seat. I'm sorry I'm late. It's not my fault. I have this advertising ad due yesterday for this 2008 Obama campaign, and it's taken so much of my time. Carl didn't say a word. Hell, he didn't have time to. He listened, and Drew explained as she got seated. Beck's feet were planted as Drew further explained her hang-ups. The young lady didn't want to leave knowing Carl was ready to order. She already knew what Drew was having. It hadn't changed in almost a year. Whew, what a day. An exhausted Drew finally settled down long enough to see Beck standing there. Oh, hey, Bex, how are you? I didn't see you standing there. Girl, this job got me crazy. Drew rested her back on the chair, letting out a sigh, at the same time shaking her head. I know what you mean. Bex chuckled, looking over at a timid young man who was about to drop a bucket of ice. Catching the shade Bex threw over the young man's head, Drew chuckled, looking over the menu as if she was going to change her regular order. Have you ordered yet, Carl? She asked. Carl told Drew he was about to order when she rushed in. Drew threw Bex a smile accompanied by a wink. You know what I'm having. Bex nodded her head, recalling out loud Drew's usual. A turkey sub on toasted rye bread with the works and a water. Bex then took Carl's order, afterwards hurried off to produce. While the father and daughter waited on their order, Carl couldn't get a word in edgewise. Drew was on a rant about not having enough time in the day to do all the things that needed to be done. Problem being her job and the wedding. Y'all see, Drew and Marcus were set to tie the knots in about 4 months. Drew vented that her job was being so demanding, it wasn't wasn't allowing her enough freedom to focus on the wedding. Drew paused long enough to take a drink of water. Carl cleared his throat. If you're going to be working your butt off like that, you should be doing it for yourself. Think about starting your own business, Carl suggested. Drew nodded her head in agreement. Carl always encouraged her to start her own business. Carl himself had owned his own staffing company for over 20 years, Unlimited Resource Solutions. Anyway, Carl cleared his throat once more. There's nothing like answering to yourself, sweetheart. You really need to think about starting your own business. Drew agreed. Bex returned with their order. Serving them up, she asked Drew how the wedding was coming along. Ugh, don't ask. Drew buried her head in the Coach purse she carried, then began to whimper. Bex looked over at Carl. With a shrug of her shoulders, she asked, "Did I say something wrong?" Carl chuckled, shaking his head no, informing Bex their little bride was just overstimulated. Drew lifted her head from the purse. Carl and Bex both looked at her with lifted brows. There was a snicker wrapper hanging from Drew's eyelash. Bex burst into laughter, pulling the wrapper from Drew's eye. Yeah, and if you keep eating these Snicker bars, there's gonna be more to worry about than just flowers. Bex slapped her hips, raised a brow to Drew, then walked off laughing. Noticing the distress on Drew's face, Carl took her hand and placed a kiss upon it. Drew loved when he did that. It made her feel like a princess. He spoke. Listen, Drew, you have to stop overworking yourself like that. Make your employees do the work for you. Be kind but firm. Carl gazed at Drew with no pause. Now this always made her feel uncomfortable. It made Drew feel like she was under a microscope or something. Drew bashfully looked down at her phone to pass the moment. Carl spoke. I know this makes you feel uneasy, and I try my best not to stare, but when a man has a daughter as beautiful and as intelligent as you, how is he not to be proud? Carl paused. Then he spoke. Your mother was beautiful as well. Drew looked up from her phone. The words, your mother, summons her attention. Carl never talked about her mother. Responding with a smile, Drew didn't interrupt. Instead, she allowed Carl to continue. Any information he had about her mom was welcome. You even have her smile, Carl enlightened. He retook Drew's hand. It was in that moment he felt it necessary that Drew knew the truth about his and Joy's relationship. Can I be honest with you? Carl asked. Then he went on to inform Drew at their first sit-down conversation there was a lot of things that he left out. He'd answered all the questions that she asked, but there were some things that he left out. Carl admitted he lied about him and Joy not being an item when in reality she held a piece of him no one could release, and that's partially why he went off to the military after she ran off. Real spill, Drew. This is the only way I could escape the pain of her leaving me, Carl confessed. Oh, Carl really is hurt. He was hurt behind Drew's mother leaving him. Quick note, women. Men are not the only ones that can hurt. Because men get hurt as well by women. I mean, think about it. Let's go back to the movie Color Purple. A lot of people didn't see it like I did, but I saw it like this. Mister, he had been hurt. His wife got killed coming home from church by a boyfriend. Suge Avery treated him like a toy. She referred to him as a little boy, not a man. His daddy wouldn't let him be a man. It was always, boy, get out. Part of this, part of that. Yeah, Mister was hurt. And think about this. Hurt people hurt people. But Celie had his back. Because can't nobody tell me that Mister didn't see her spit in that water. Okay, carrying on, y'all. Okay, so by this time, Drew is involved in the backstory that Carl is telling about him and Joy's situationship. She could also tell that not only was she hurt by Joy's disappearing act, but Carl was hurt as well. Carl moved his chair closer so he could look into Drew's eyes. They were her Oh snap. Yeah, he got it bad. Anyway, Carl told Drew everyone was gathered in the rec room for the premiere of Roots. He laughed out. You would have thought a famous actor or someone was coming by the way the room was packed. Drew was chimed in, honeys. She'd forgotten all about her sandwich as she listened to Carl continued. He confessed, noticing Joy as soon as she walked into the room, that her and another young lady were joking around on the piano. Carl blushed, admitting Joy had instrumental and vocal talent that was unbelievable. Drew, your mother had the voice of an angel, and the way she commanded the keys on that piano to harmonize with her was something you see on stage. Drew listened to her father's story, growing more excited with each word. She also noticed Carl becoming a bit excited himself. Her father continued, informing after the movie was over, a lot of the students went to an off-campus party he didn't want to attend, but a few of his buddies pressured him into going. Man, peer pressure can be something else, and sometimes beneficial too. Carl chuckled, telling Drew after seeing Joy there, he was glad to be pressured. I had never been so infatuated by a female before in my life until I seen Joy. Carl then looked up at the lights, holding a smile as big as day as if he could see Joy's face. Drew raised a brow. Okay, honey, I girl probably like, what the woods? Out of nowhere and with no warning, Carl admitted the infatuation was probably because he was still a virgin. Oh, Drew said to self. Now she didn't feel so weirded out about being a virgin. I mean, a virgin, somewhat of a virgin, because her and Marcus had come close to trying it out, but they stopped themselves before any real damage had been done. Okay, I put damage there because in real times, incorporating sex into a relationship too fast can damage the courtship. Ask me how I know. Experience is a good teacher. Ain't that what Mickey Howard said? Yeah, you live, you learn, you do something different, right? Anyways, after squaring away that it was still okay to be a virgin, Drew turned her attention back to Carl, who was explaining how everyone was having a good time at the party, but he was ducked off in a corner fighting the boy in him who wasn't man enough to even say hello to Joy. Carl shook his head. Your mother was so beautiful. I knew she'd laugh at me for sure if I pushed up on her. Not pushed up on her, Carl. By this time, Drew was so involved. I mean, so involved. Her elbows were on the table, her chin rested in the palm of her hand, and her lips were glued to Carl's lips. Drew yearned for more. She'd finally gotten an image of her mother, a real one, not one she created with her own imagination. Carl went on to tell Drew after the party was over, he got into his car to leave. That's when he noticed Joy at the bus stop smoking a cigarette. Once again, Carl's eyes lit up as he looked at the ceiling. The way your mother's skin glowed up under the moonlight, you thought she had a special light that only shined on her. Carl furthered his details. Joy looked like she'd just stepped off a runway. Her jet black hair flowed down her back like dark waters, her skin smooth as honey. All the while her eyes spoke to me without saying a word. He described her smile sweet and smooth, her spirit humble and meek. Observing her father, Drew conversated with self. Topic of conversation being, it seemed that Carl was still in love with Joy. It does make you question, right? Anyways, Carl told Drew there was no way he was going to leave Joy waiting at a bus stop by herself. So he pulled up and asked her if she wanted to ride back to campus. Believe me, being a black woman back in those days, you didn't want to get caught being at the bus stop alone, Carl informed. He also informed Joy was hesitant at first, but got into the car anyway. Carl chuckled at the memory. Your mother didn't waste any time. As soon as she got into my car, she coursed Drew waited with anticipation, waiting to know the question her mother asked. Y'all want to know too, right? I bet you didn't. Well, it'll be asked in the next story time, along with more details about Drew's past. So, if you're one of those who are involved, join me here for the next story time. Until then, register this. Breaking generational curses begins with generational awareness. Know the generations from which you came and understand everything taught wasn't always right. Be wise enough, bold enough to change taught behavior if it doesn't line up with righteousness.